Chapter 1. The Proposal Nobody Wanted. Lady Evelyne Ashford had long made peace with her fate. At the age of 22, unmarried and unbetrothed, she was a whisper on the lips of noble mothers, a cautionary tale in silk gloves and pinned curls. Pretty enough, they said, but too quiet, too serious. Missed her window, poor thing. Evelyne never bothered correcting them. Let them gossip. Let them pity. It was easier than explaining the truth, that she had once loved and chosen not to be loved in return. She sat in the garden pavilion of Ashford Manor, embroidery hoop in hand, though her stitches had long since ceased to form anything coherent. The air carried a faint breeze and the sound of laughter from the east wing. Her sister Clarice and her new husband Graham Everly returning from a morning ride. Her fingers tightened slightly. Graham had once been Evelyne's everything. Her shadow, her companion, her fellow tree climber and puddle jumper. He'd called her Ev, and brought her cherry tarts when she cried. He had also been in love with Clarice from the moment her sister turned 12 and smiled at him with those dimples that made governesses despair and footmen trip over their own boots. Evelyne had seen it, long before anyone else, and so she'd stepped back. She'd watched them fall in love. She'd been the one to press Clarice's hair ribbons into her hands before her first outing. The one who encouraged Graham to speak his mind. The one who gave her blessing with a practiced smile and a very quiet heartbreak. It had been 3 years since then. Long enough to grow used to the ache. Lady Evelyne. She looked up to see Mr. Porter, her father's steward, approaching with a letter in hand and a rare expression of barely concealed urgency. Yes, Mr. Porter? A message from the Duke of Elveston's household. Addressed to Lord Ashford. Marked urgent. She blinked. The Duke of Elveston? One of the wealthiest, most powerful peers in the realm? Thank you, she said, accepting it and rising with grace. I'll take it to my father. Inside the drawing room, Baron Ashford was already pacing. A letter unfolded in one hand, a glass of brandy untouched in the other. Father. He looked up, startled, and gestured for her to sit. She obeyed. I have news, he said, adjusting his cravat nervously. Of significant consequence. Has something happened to Clarice? She asked quickly. No, nothing like that. This is about you. Evelyne froze. Her father cleared his throat. You've been offered a proposal. From whom? He looked at the letter again as if unsure he'd read it correctly the first 5 times. Lord Cedric Valemont. Evelyne blinked. The Duke's second son? She asked. Her father nodded. Is this a joke? I asked the same thing. Everyone knew Lord Cedric Valemont. Or rather, they knew of him. He was the golden second son. Tall, impossibly handsome, a scholar, an equestrian and a war hero if the rumors were to be believed. But he was also entirely untouchable, literally. The ladies of the capital called him the untouchable lord. Rumor claimed that the mere brush of a woman's hand could send him into convulsions. No one could explain it and no one dared test it twice. Society had long since decided that Lord Cedric would never marry. Now apparently he was proposing. To me. Evelyne said again because her brain simply refused to catch up. Yes. It seems he submitted the request personally. His father has approved it. And I would not push you, but it is a strong alliance. His estate is large. The match would. I'll accept. Her father blinked. You will. Evelyne stood, smoothing her skirts with quiet resolve. He is a duke's son. He is not in love with Clarice. And I am, as you've gently reminded me each spring, past the bloom of youth. I didn't mean. I know, Papa. She smiled gently. It's a good match. And frankly, I'm curious. Curious. She turned toward the window, watching the sun flicker off the rose garden. I've spent so long watching other people fall in love, I might as well try something different. Her father didn't understand. He didn't have to. Cedric's POV. At the Elveston estate, Lord Cedric Valemont sneezed violently into a silk handkerchief. "Good heavens, Cedric," his elder brother muttered. "Is this why you're marrying that baron's daughter? You've decided to die spectacularly in her arms." "She won't touch me," Cedric snapped, dabbing his nose. "That's the point. She's the only woman in the kingdom who hasn't tried to pet me like a stray dog." "You do have the hair for it." Cedric ignored him. He had watched Lady Evelyne Ashford from afar during last season. Tall, composed, almost invisible to those obsessed with flashier game. She had the rare ability to disappear in a room full of people, and the even rarer talent of listening more than she spoke. And she'd never once looked at him like a prize to be won. Which for Cedric was practically a love letter. The engagement. Cedric Valemont had survived battles of etiquette, fencing duels with his elder brother, and 3 near-fatal encounters with scented gloves. But nothing could have prepared him for the quiet ferocity of Lady Evelyne Ashford. He had expected something different from the daughter of a minor baron. Perhaps someone flustered or desperate, a young woman eager to climb into title and power by virtue of marriage. Instead, the woman before him sat with regal posture and unreadable poise, her expression calm but not cold. She did not smile at him. She did not fawn. She simply looked. And for the first time in years, Cedric didn't feel like an object being evaluated. He felt seen. She was older than most unmarried ladies, 22, and the whispers called her a spinster. But Cedric saw none of the bitterness he'd come to expect in women pushed to marry late. No desperation. No syrupy charm. Just steel beneath silk. Their first meeting in the Valemont drawing room had been short, polite, and brutally awkward. "You've heard of my condition?" he asked stiffly. She nodded once. "Everyone has. And yet here you are. Would you rather I left?" He blinked. "No, Good. Because I'm here to marry you. Not cure you." For a moment he said nothing. Then, "You really don't care, do you?" She tilted her head. "About your condition? Well, about your temperament?" "A bit." He snorted, an inelegant, startled laugh. "I'm not sure whether to be insulted or relieved." She offered a dry smile. "I'd suggest both. Balance is important in marriage, isn't it?" That was the moment Cedric would later realize when something shifted. As the engagement was announced, his mother wept tears of joy. His brother Alec clapped him on the back and whispered, "You actually found someone who doesn't immediately recoil." Miracle. But Cedric kept thinking about Evelyne. Her measured voice. The calm way she had said, "I'm not here to cure you." It wasn't pity. It wasn't fascination. It was respect. And in his world, where every woman who ever touched his hand saw him as something to fix or pity, it was startlingly rare. That night, alone in his study, Cedric wrote a single line in his journal. "She didn't look at me like I was sick. She looked at me like I was a puzzle not meant to be solved, but simply understood." He didn't sleep well that night. But for the first time in years, the thought of marriage didn't feel like a sentence. It felt possible. Chapter 2. A Marriage Without Touch. The church bells tolled with all the pomp and fanfare befitting a noble union, though Lady Evelyne Ashford had never felt more like an exhibit in a curiosity cabinet. The ceremony itself had been perfectly executed. Flawlessly even. No tears, no stumbles, no last-minute objections. But there had been one notable omission. No kiss. Instead, Lord Cedric Valemont had bowed crisply at the altar, taken a gloved hand in his and said, "A pleasure," like he'd just been introduced to a new accountant. The gathered guests murmured behind fans and cravats. "A pleasure," Evelyne had echoed, equally dry. The pillow wall. The door creaked open to reveal the master bedroom, ornate, elegant, and divided like a battlefield. On one side stood Lord Cedric Valemont, already in a velvet robe, arms folded. Between him and the bed was a towering fortress of pillows, so large and precise it looked like a military engineer had constructed it. Evelyne blinked. He cleared his throat. "Before you say anything, I assure you, this was done for your protection." "From what?" she asked, stepping inside with a perfectly arched brow. Pie skin. He pointed to his face, his hands, then the bed. There are variables I cannot control in my sleep. This barrier ensures we both remain uncontaminated. Evelyne closed the door behind her. You know, some couples start their wedding night with champagne and stolen glances. You've started ours with defensive architecture. He looked genuinely thoughtful. Would champagne help? No. But your face just now helped a little. There was a pause. She walked toward her side of the bed, slowly, deliberately. You needn't worry, Lord Valemont. I have no intentions of hurling myself over the pillow wall to ravish you in the night. I wasn't worried, he said just a bit too quickly. She gave a small smirk. A shame. It might have been fun. His face turned an impressive shade of red. They settled into bed, each on their own side of the fortification. The room was silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock and Cedric's soft, rapid breathing. You're holding your breath, Evelyne said after a moment. I am not. R2. It's a defense mechanism. Do you usually hold your breath when women speak to you, or is that a privilege reserved only for your wife? He exhaled heavily. You mock me. She rolled onto her side, facing the wall of pillows. Only because it seems to be the only way to get you to relax. He paused. You're not what I expected. Nor are you. She reached out, resting her hand gently on one of the pillows. But I think I might like this strange arrangement of ours. You do. Well, I'm not swooning over love poetry or stolen kisses, but I also haven't been mauled by a debutante in months. There's a refreshing lack of drama with you. He laughed, genuinely. Soft, warm, startled. That may be the nicest thing anyone said to me. Evelyne smiled in the dark. Good night, Lord Valemont. Good night, Lady Valemont. From behind the pillow wall, two quiet smiles lingered in the dark, neither ready to admit that this might be the safest they'd ever felt in someone else's presence. The breakfast room was absurdly long. Evelyne entered wearing a pale blue day dress and an expression halfway between amusement and disbelief. Cedric was already seated, at the far end of the table, reading a book titled The Digestive Perils of Noble Dining. Between them lay a pristine white tablecloth, a candelabrum of ridiculous height, and a veritable ocean of space. Evelyne squinted down the table. Do I need a telescope to say good morning? Cedric looked up, entirely serious. The distance reduces allergen risk. I feel like I'm addressing a foreign dignitary, not my husband. If I wave a napkin 3 times, it means I'm requesting butter. She blinked. What if you just ask for the butter? That would defeat the purpose of the flag system. Of course. How silly of me. A servant entered, placing toast in front of her. Cedric rang a small silver bell at his end, which resulted in another servant appearing to swap out his cutlery. Are those labeled? Evelyne asked, leaning slightly. Sterilized and categorized by meal type, Cedric explained. We use the level 3 spoons for eggs. What happens if I use a level 2 spoon? I'd prefer not to relive the trout soufflé incident of 1024. Trout soufflé? Was that the time you passed out at Lady Marrow's luncheon? It was a medically induced nap. Evelyne shook her head, laughing helplessly. You are truly the most exhausting man I have ever dined with. I've been told it's part of my charm. She leaned forward conspiratorially. Tell me something, Cedric. Have you ever had a completely normal breakfast? You know, toast, jam, close conversation, the occasional accidental brush of fingers. He gave her a long, contemplative look. Only once. I was 7. It ended in tears, a rash, and an overturned teapot. Since then I prefer protocol. Evelyne smiled behind her teacup. Well, consider this fair warning. I intend to break at least one of your breakfast rules every morning. Just to keep life interesting. He raised an eyebrow, but his lips twitched in a way that suggested he didn't entirely mind. Letters and realizations. Later that evening, Evelyne sat at her writing desk, pen poised over a half-finished letter to Clarice. She wrote, He is not what I expected. And neither perhaps am I. There is comfort in how peculiar we are together. Across the hall, Cedric sat in his study, writing in a notebook with careful script. Lady Evelyne Ashford Valemont is not beautiful in the way debutantes are. But she is steady. Wry. Entirely without illusion. I think I find that refreshing. I think I find her. He paused, tapped the pen to his chin, then scratched out the word intriguing and replaced it with safe. And then crossed that out too. Chapter 3. The Rules of the Valemont Estate. 2 days into married life, Evelyne discovered that her husband ran his estate like a military academy. If the soldiers were all terrified of unwashed linen and faint floral perfume. Rule 1. No sudden movements. Rule 2. No unexpected floral arrangements. Rule 3. Gloves indoors at all times unless accompanied by a glove removal chaperone. Is that a real position? Evelyne asked, incredulous. Cedric nodded solemnly. We rotate the footmen weekly. The estate was grand, filled with portraits of disapproving ancestors and exactly 7 functioning fireplaces, each maintained at optimal allergic balance. Even the library had a scent-dampening charm Cedric claimed was essential to protect the leather bindings. Evelyne, ever adaptable, made it her mission to quietly learn every rule and break one with flair. First, she swapped the lavender-scented soap in the guest washroom with jasmine. Chaos ensued. Cedric emerged from his bath that evening with narrowed eyes and a towel-wrapped suspicion. Something's wrong, he said, sniffing the air. Is it the jasmine breeze of mild rebellion? Evelyne asked sweetly. He narrowed his eyes further. You're a danger to this household. Good, she replied. I was starting to worry I was just a guest with a ring. But despite the rule-breaking, or perhaps because of it, a strange rhythm began to form between them. They took walks 10 feet apart naturally, shared quiet dinners, fork charts and all, and began to speak more than just obligatory pleasantries. One evening in the library, Cedric stood before the hearth, reading aloud from an old family journal. Listen to this, June 2nd. Great-uncle Bertram claimed the roof tiles were transmitting romantic impulses. Was confined to the east wing with a bucket on his head. Evelyne burst out laughing. That explains the painting in the west corridor. Cedric chuckled. You're frighteningly good at this, being here I mean. I've had years of practice navigating uncomfortable silences and difficult men, she said wryly. I'm not difficult, he protested. You're the embodiment of difficulty. A walking pamphlet on social hazard. He paused. But I amuse you. Terribly. Their eyes met across the library. No pillows between them this time, just a long carpet and shared laughter. I'm glad, he said softly. Evelyne tilted her head. Glad you amuse me? Glad you're here. She said nothing, but her fingers brushed the edge of a nearby book just once, as though holding back the need to do something, say something, more. Conflicting journals. That night, Evelyne scribbled in her journal. He doesn't notice, I think, how often he looks at me when he laughs. As if surprised I'm still here. As if he's waiting for me to disappear. Across the hall, Cedric wrote. She touched the edge of the shelf today. Not me. But close. I didn't flinch. Is it the gloves? Or is it her? I hope, absurdly, I hope it's her. The first accidental touch. It happened on a Tuesday. The sun was stubbornly bright, and Evelyne had ventured into the garden to supervise the relocation of a rare ornamental rosebush, a task Cedric insisted on overseeing due to soil integrity. He arrived precisely 12 minutes late, brandishing a small field journal and wearing gloves thick enough to survive a bear attack. Cedric, we are not going to war with the roses, she called out. These gloves are certified against 3 types of pollen and 2 forms of feminine intrusion, he replied. You truly are the human embodiment of an instruction manual. They bickered lightly over where the rosebush should go, Evelyne advocating for aesthetic placement, Cedric for optimal sun exposure. The gardener stood frozen between them, unsure which noble to displease first. Then came the moment. Evelyne leaned down to point at a shadowed patch of soil. Cedric bent at the same time. Their fingers brushed. It was brief. A single instant. Skin to skin. No gloves. No preparation. They both froze. The gardener fled. Evelyne pulled back like she'd touched fire, but not because it hurt. Because it hadn't. No hives. No breathless gasping. No panicked search for antihistamine tinctures. Cedric stared at his hand. Then hers. Then back again. Well, Evelyne said after a beat. Either I've killed you or I'm immune. Cedric opened his mouth, then closed it again. Then opened it. This is medically unprecedented. Shall I fetch a priest? Or a biologist? He held up his hand, eyes wide. Touch me again. Evelyne snorted. How romantic. I'm serious. You want me to poke you? For science. So she reached out, hesitated, then gently tapped his wrist. Still nothing. They looked at each other. The air changed. I suppose, Evelyne said quietly, you really are allergic to everyone else. Cedric's voice was hushed. But not to you. Neither of them said it aloud, but both heard the same thought loud and clear. Like. Chapter 4. Scandal at the Garden Ball. The invitation had arrived with gold leaf edges and an insufferably dramatic wax seal. The Duchess of Moorgrave cordially invites Lord and Lady Valemont to her annual garden ball, an event of fashion, elegance and social bloodsport. Cedric groaned when he read it. There will be touching. Evelyne smirked. There will be gloves. Cedric looked haunted. Worse. So they went. The ball. The Moorgrave Gardens were less gardens and more a battleground of competitive hedges, classical string quartets and dueling perfume clouds. Nobles mingled under lantern-lit arches while laughter trickled like champagne. Cedric arrived in dark navy with immaculate gloves. Evelyne wore emerald silk that hugged her waist and commanded attention. Whispers followed them instantly. Is that the Ashford girl? She touched him, they say. They're sharing a household, I heard. He didn't faint at the last dinner. As if to challenge fate, the Duchess of Moorgrave cornered them within moments. Lord Cedric, she cooed. You must open the dancing. I mustn't, Cedric said flatly. Surely your lovely wife. She can dance with you if you insist. I beg your pardon? Evelyne stepped in smoothly. I'm afraid we must decline. My husband has delicate shoes. Shoes. Sensitive leather. It's a tragic condition. The Duchess blinked. Yes. Of course. The scandal. Later, while strolling through the lantern path, Cedric and Evelyne were ambushed by Lady Fenra Altbridge, a notorious flirt armed with eyelashes like daggers. My lord, she purred, surely you can spare a dance? Just one. Cedric stepped back. But she lunged. Her fingers grazed his hand. He stiffened. His breathing hitched. Evelyne moved faster than thought. She snatched Cedric's hand, dragged him away and shoved him into a waiting carriage. Inside he slumped against the seat, face pale. Are you? Fine. Just nauseous. She smelled like sugared violets and lies. Evelyne held his hand without thinking. He didn't flinch. When he looked up at her, his voice was quiet. Why can you touch me? I don't know. I want to find out. Their hands stayed together the whole ride home. New rules. Back at the estate, Cedric stood at the doorway to her room looking uncertain. Would it be inappropriate, he asked, to request the removal of the pillow wall? Evelyne grinned. Only if you help me set fire to it. A jealous duke's son. Began with a picnic. A sunny afternoon. Evelyne laughing with a visiting cousin of hers. A certain Lord Thomas Renner, a cheerful young man with floppy hair, a poetic disposition, and the kind of breezy charm that could knock over half the court without even trying. Cedric watched them from the upper terrace, arms crossed, frown deepening with every shared smile. Evelyne nudged Thomas's shoulder lightly when he made her laugh. Cedric's eye twitched. She never nudged him. She's allowed to laugh, he muttered. Of course she is, said his brother Alec, appearing beside him with an apple in one hand and mischief in the other. Though I must say that smile was a bit more than oh how amusing. That was a you're so delightful, let me keep talking to you forever kind of smile. Stop talking. And the touch on the shoulder? That's practically a proposal in some households. Cedric turned sharply. They're cousins. Are they? Alec took a bite of the apple. Could have fooled me. Cedric didn't reply. His jaw tightened. Alex smirked. You're jealous. I'm not jealous. You're absolutely jealous. I'm concerned. About her elbow proximity? About her being so unbothered by him. Alec leaned in. You like her. I respect her. You want to dance with her. I want to throw that idiot poet into the lake. Which for you is practically a love sonnet. Cedric stormed off. That night, Cedric's study. He sat at his desk, ink blotted in his journal. He touches him easily. He does not fear his skin. She laughed at something he said, eyes crinkled, nose scrunched. I wanted that laugh. I wanted her to reach for me the same way. He paused. Then slowly. I don't want her near him again. The quill hovered. Cedric stared at the words, stunned by the truth of them. I want her near me. Chapter 5. A dangerous cure. After the garden ball, the whispers grew louder. The idea that Lady Evelyne might be Cedric's cure swept through high society like wildfire. The Duke summoned them. In the grand hall, beneath oil portraits and the unimpressed stare of a hound sculpture, he looked at his son and said, If she can touch you, Cedric, without incident, then perhaps it's time to seek answers. Real answers. What kind of answers? Evelyne asked. The Duke turned to her. Scientific. Medical. Magical if need be. We have a team of healers and scholars assembling at the summer estate. I want you both to go. Find out why you're different. Evelyne glanced at Cedric. Do you want that? He hesitated. I don't know. I fear what we might discover. Evelyne gave a small, reassuring smile. Then let's discover it together. The summer estate. It was beautiful and secluded, and overrun with scholars. Cedric was subjected to 8 different skin tests, magical aura mapping, exposure to controlled female proximity. He growled the whole way through. Emotional fluctuation diaries. Evelyne peeked. His entries were hilariously grumpy. After a particularly absurd ritual involving crystal rods and goat's milk, Cedric turned to Evelyne and whispered, I miss the pillow wall. Evelyne laughed. You hated the pillow wall. I'm nostalgic. The turning point. One evening after a long day of testing, Evelyne found Cedric alone on a garden bench, staring at his hand. She sat beside him close enough that their knees almost touched. No reaction, he said quietly. Not once. Every time you touch me, I'm fine. That bothers you? No. It confuses me. He turned to her. I've spent my whole life believing I was broken. That I could never have this. And now I wonder if it was never the condition that was the problem, just the people. Evelyne's heart twisted. You're not broken, Cedric. You're cautious. You're careful. You're deeply irritating. But you're not broken. His laugh was soft. And you're braver than I thought. Why? Because you could have chosen to be bitter. About Graham. About your reputation. About this marriage. But instead you chose to be kind. And honest. And patient. And funny. Infuriatingly funny. Evelyne smiled. Is that a compliment or an allergic reaction? Cedric turned toward her fully. You changed everything. And I don't know when it happened, but I find myself thinking about your hands. The way you hold a teacup. The way you never flinch. The way you touch my arm and the world doesn't fall apart. In fact, it starts to feel like it's just beginning. Then slowly, tentatively, he lifted his gloved hand and removed it. And reached for hers. Skin to skin. Warm. Solid. Steady. He didn't flinch. Neither did she. Letters unsent. That night, Evelyne wrote a letter she never sent. I think I'm falling in love with a man who thought he could never be loved at all. And somehow I'm the only one who can touch him. And maybe he's the only one who can reach me too. Chapter 6. Just the two of us. The summer estate had gone quiet. The scholars were gone, the tests concluded. No rashes. No fevers. No spells. No explanations. Only one conclusion remained. It was her. Evelyne. Somehow, impossibly, his skin didn't reject hers. It welcomed her. And Cedric had run out of reasons to pretend that didn't mean something far deeper than any physician could explain. That evening the rain came. Gentle at first, then insistent. It danced against the windows, softened the edges of the world. Evelyne sat on the window seat in her nightgown, wrapped in a shawl, the glow of the hearth warming her skin. She heard the door open behind her. Couldn't sleep either? She asked softly. Cedric didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was low. No. I kept thinking. Dangerous habit. He stepped closer. His footsteps were quiet. Intentional. I kept thinking about the first time I saw you. Not when we were introduced, but truly saw you. She turned her head, curiosity blooming. When? That garden recital. You wore a green gown. Everyone else was trying to be heard. But you were quiet. Like still water. And I thought, there she is. The one person not performing. The one person who sees everything and says nothing. Evelyne's breath caught. You remember what I wore? I remember everything about you. The way you tilt your head when you're hiding a laugh. The way you stir your tea clockwise. The way you look at people when they think they're not being watched. Kindly. Without judgment. As though you're waiting for them to be better. He was beside her now. No gloves. No walls. Only them. Evelyne whispered, "What are you doing?" "Something I should have done long ago." He knelt in front of her, took her hands and placed them against his cheeks. Her thumbs brushed the faintest shadows beneath his eyes. "No rash," she teased, voice trembling. "Only the ache in my chest." He leaned in slowly. She met him halfway. The kiss was not a grand declaration. It was a secret, soft and full of unspoken words. His lips were warm, tentative at first, then certain. Her hands slid up into his hair and he didn't flinch. Instead, he drew her closer as though he'd been waiting years to know what it felt like to be held. When they broke apart, he kept his forehead pressed to hers. "I love you," he said so simply it didn't feel like a confession. It felt like a truth that had always existed, waiting to be said aloud. Evelyne closed her eyes. "Say it again." "I love you." She smiled, eyes still shut. "I love you too. Even if you still alphabetize your spoons." He groaned. "You're never letting that go, are you?" "Never." They laughed quietly, wrapped in each other as the rain fell and the fire crackled and the world shrank down to just two people who had once thought they were too odd, too broken, too forgotten to be chosen. And had found against every odd that they were just right for each other. The book. Months later, at a small dinner, Lady Evelyne reached across the table and took her husband's hand, bare and unloved, in front of 7 witnesses. Gasps rippled. But Cedric didn't so much as sneeze. He only smiled, laced their fingers together and whispered, "You still owe me a pillow wall bonfire."